Uh, so I'm going to show you guys something here. Um, what we're looking at here is we could just read it, map for conversion of injection volume to energizing time, which essentially means, duration or pulse width of the injectors, blah, 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 blah. This is your main fuel. Now, what we're looking at here, this top table is the factory table. This bottom table is a table that is, hold on, let me make sure my mic's on here. All right. This bottom one is a table that's done by a company that is claimed to be the best company out there. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you what this company did so you guys can understand that there's not very much actual tuning happening here. It's basically people essentially guessing and just throwing shit around in order to put something together. Okay, this is very simple. See this 100 right here? This row right here, okay? 100, okay? This is injection. This is injection volume, okay? So you got 6,000, 6,000, and you got all these fours. 4, 4, 4, 4, 2, 7, 5, 5. All right, check this out. 100. 6,000, 6,000, 4, 4, 4, 2, 7, 5. If you take a look here, you have the exact same row. This row is identical. So this is the top of the wide open throttle on the factory. Well, that row's right here. Okay. Now I'm going to show you something different. You got 85 right here, right? Well, you got 80 and 90 right here. Okay. So they changed this to 85. Okay. So what we're going to do here is we're going to take 5,657.2 minus 5112. Okay, we have 545.2. We're going to divide that by 2, which comes to 272.6, and we're going to add it to 5112. We get 5,384.6. Okay, so 85 based on the injector pulse width of the factory table, this number should be 5,384.6. Now, what this tells you is that the table for number 85, the line, the row, whatever you want to call it, is actually lower than stock. So what we have here is a row lower than stock. We have a row right here, which is identical to stock, okay? And then we have one row right here, all right? Now, let's show you how they got this math here, okay? You're going to take this number, okay? 4444, okay? And my bad. Let's redo this. You're going to take the number below it, 5110.4 divided by 4444 equals 1.149955. This is roughly 15%. Now, the math in this software is not always exact math. So sometimes when you multiply something by 15%, it ends up being 14.9 or 15.1. Okay, now look over here. See this here? 100. They added this row of 115. And what did they do? Essentially, they times the factory row by 15%. So what you have is 15% higher than the table's ever been, right? Right here, okay? We have stock, okay? And we have lower, right here, this row here, lower than stock, okay? So what that tells you is that this company left the factory pulse width virtually 100% stock. The only difference is, this is the only difference, when the commanded injected volume goes higher than 100 on the stock map, it will take this row and it will keep this row no matter what. Even if the injection volume is 150, this row will continue to be followed, okay? Now, if it breaks 100, depending on how the computer's algorithm is set up, it will find a number in between 100 and 115, or it'll stay on the 100 row until it hits 115. And then when it hits 115, it'll be at this row. Now, from there on, any injection rate above 115 will carry this row with the columns, right, all the way up. So, in theory, their pulse width table is almost 100% stock. All they have allowed is that if the injection volume breaks 100 millimeters cubed, it will be allowed to run up to 15% higher fuel rate than the previous row of 100. That's it. And this is why a lot of these companies aren't making on the dyno the power they tell you they're making. You can't just crank the boost up and that's it. Power is not made strictly off of boost. You have to use fuel in order to properly make power. Now, we can go into this a little bit more, and because with diesels, it's not like fuel. There's a huge mess of explanation that goes into diesel boost in diesel engines, fuel in diesel engines, and diesel timing in diesel engines. And all of it, almost 100% of it, contradicts everything that you've ever learned from gas engines, okay? So this here is injector pulse width tables from the company that is considered to be the best EcoDiesel tuning company in the history of the EcoDiesel. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now I'm going to bring up two more files and I'm going to show you basically the exact same thing but from other companies. So I'm going to end this video here, and this company claims to be one of the best companies out there right now for the EcoDiesel tuning. Now, what I didn't really explain in the last video is, so here's the stock one, okay? Now this blue means it's lower than the other file, the red means it's higher than the other file. Pretty self-explanatory, okay? Now, this is a little bit more, I think, concerning than the last company. Now, the thing is that I actually like the way that they attempted to do this a little bit better here. And you can see that because you got kind of like a little bit of a slope here, all right? But where they messed up and dropped the ball is this section here, because, you know, there should have been something more like this, all right? And then this should have been feathered in. I mean, look at this pulse width here, okay? In the rare form, or the rare scenario that you land on this exact cell, okay? You land on this exact cell and you give it a freaking hair more throttle, it's going to jump from a pulse width of 65 to 125. It is literally going to double the pulse width, the current pulse width of the injector, one cell difference. Okay, now this stuff does happen by accident. It really does. All right. Now, if you look here, 79, 96, 104, 115. You see this? This is smooth. This is the way it's supposed to be from the factory. You can't do stuff like this because this is how you get engines that run like shit and get jittery and blah, 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 blah. All right, so let's take a look here and try to figure out just some random percentages, okay, that this company used here. All right, so let's take this one here. So 125. 0.2 divided by, what do we got here? 79, 125.2 divided by 79.2. We have a basically, essentially, all right, added, I don't really want to have to explain it like that. So if you look here, you basically take, so the equation ends up being 1.58, okay? Which means that this number is 158% higher than this number here, all right? 158% higher, okay? Now let's take 743 divided by 339, 219% higher, okay? and we go over here, 1660 divided by 1615, 2% higher, okay? Okay, let's pick another number here, 977 divided by 947. All right, 3%. Let's take this number, 1028 divided by, what is that, 863? Jesus, divided by 863, 19%. So they are sloping it up, okay? So let's see, 908 divided by 754, 20% higher. Or, you know, when I say 20%, it means 120% higher. It means that 100%, so 754, plus 20% of the 754 equals 908, all right? So I understand what they were doing here, and it makes sense, but this is extremely sloppy, okay? This is sloppy. Things like this are mistakes. Now, don't get me wrong, when I pull my file up, if I see something like this, I'm going to tell you about it, and I'm going to say, hey, you see right here, this is where I made a mistake. You know, this is something simple to clean up. I'll clean it up, and all my tunes will be updated with the repair. Now, again, this is a 60 horsepower tune. You cannot get 60 wheel horsepower out of an EcoDiesel on strictly boost. This is relying more on boost than it is fuel. The EcoDiesel uses a turbo that's designed for a small 4-cylinder on a decent sized V6. So picture a 2.0 turbo engine and the turbo. It needs a very small variable vane turbo to run properly. Well, they take this very small variable vane turbo and they slap it on the 3.0 EcoDiesel. And that is why the EcoDiesel doesn't make shit for power stock. And through tuning, we can get 60 plus horsepower. This tune will not make 60 wheel horsepower on the dyno. It's not possible. They're not utilizing any fuel at all to make power. Now, something else people need to take into consideration. Okay, so let's take a look here. We have the fuel pressure. Okay, we have 220, and then 4 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4 HPA to PSI. So let's convert that back to PSI. Okay, let's see, 220, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, this is 31,900 PSI, all right? Now let's back this back off here. Let's back it down to let's just back it down to here. This is 29,000 PSI. So let's convert this the other direction. Let's see what 30,000 PSI is, because 30,000 PSI is what we should be running from a CP4. So let's double check here. So 30,000 PSI would make this number 206, which would be just a hair over this number here, okay? Now, let's see. CP4 max PSI. CP4 max PSI has a maximum pressure of 29,000 PSI, all right? So this right here is the maximum amount of PSI that a CP4 should put out, right? Okay. Now, that means these two tables here, or columns, don't matter, okay? Now, since they don't fully matter, this little mistake here doesn't really matter as much, okay? All these are here for is so if for any reason the CP4 pressure spikes above essentially 29 psi, 29,000 psi, it has pulse width to cover the extra psi. Because with common rail fuel injection, the higher the psi, the more fuel that will be sprayed through the fuel injector. So you do need to modify the pulse width based on that, okay? So this mistake here isn't as much of a big deal as it sounds or looks, okay? But that also means This right here, that's it. That's what matters, okay? So you are paying for a 60 horsepower tune where they change for a 12, 15, 17, 19, 20, 21 cells. There's only 21 cells changed on the fuel pulse width table. 21. This is why, mainly right here, is a lot of why a lot of these companies are not getting the type of fuel mileage I'm putting out. There's a lot more that goes into fuel mileage than throwing timing at things or leaning things out. And these other companies fully don't understand that. And with that being said, we will make a video explaining how to get better fuel mileage out of a common rail diesel, okay, or what we would say direct injected, whatever. We will make a video showing that as well. So I'm going to end that one here. This is the company that claims to be the best tuning company currently doing EcoDiesel tuning. You can see for yourself what it looks like, and you can judge it for yourself. And at the end of the day, none of this might even matter at all because people are going to believe whatever they want to believe. And a lot of people are going to come out and say, oh, you're biased because you do your own tuning, blah, 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 whatever. There will be a day where we get to get on the dyno with an EcoDiesel and we'll be able to run all of these tunes one after another and show people what exactly each tune makes. And when we do that, we will name the company of each tune. Now, this company here got a lot of, I don't know, disrespect early on. And we don't need to go into it, but basically, I give you enough information so that way people that are familiar with EcoDiesels can be like, oh, okay, I know what company that is. So, this again, stock, right? Here's the stock area. Here's the tuned area, okay? Now, let's just try to see here. Let's kind of pick a random number and just kind of see what the difference is here. But now let me get this straight. Everyone that's looked at this so far, you can clearly see so far not a single tune has had even remotely close to the same changes done. Everyone has made similar changes but in different ways, okay? Now, let's see. We'll take the 1935 by 1861. All right, so we're roughly 4% here, okay? Now let's go all the way to the other end. Divided by 339. So we're roughly 10% here. Okay, let's go in the middle. And 9%. 9%. 4%. Let's hit it here. 5%. 5%. So what we have is we have roughly a 4 to 5% change, okay? So let's just say roughly here, okay? And then it fades into a 9 to 10% change here, okay? Now this kind of makes sense a lot more than what the others have done because essentially this person has ramped the pulse width table up here, okay? Now again, this section here is the last row of the CP4 pump. But something I want you to take note is see this corner here? The pulse width is 370. Stock is 339. The last company had almost 800 here. So just keep that in mind. Like this guy ramped his up to what you're seeing here, where the other company barely even had a ramp. It was just fucking straight up. Bam, there it is. So just keep that in mind. Now, if you look here at these numbers, 330 to 396, you got a 66 is what the jump is, right? So here we have a 80, okay? So that's not a huge jump. They don't really need to smooth it. Don't get me wrong. He could have grabbed it from here to here and did like a 1.5% increase, right? And it would have made it ramp just a hair better, okay? So there's not much to say about this one. This company, so far compared to the rest, has done a better job at ramping the fuel up to a higher thing and wider throttle. Now that would be why, part of the reason why this company's tune smokes a little bit more than others. Now with that being said, there's a lot more to the smoke than what you're seeing here, okay? Some companies are turning off the lambda sensor, which is the smoke control. And when they turn off the smoke control, the vehicle has no way to control the smoke. Now, there's also a bunch of tables that do control the smoke as part of the tune for the people that have the sensor on. So that'll be a video for another day going into an explanation of how the smoke control works. All right, so this company here is a big company. Now, I tried to have respect for this company, but they got super upset that I did a review on their tuning before, and they got super upset about it. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that's how the world works. I mean, you make a product, people review it. At the end of the day, whatever. Don't get mad. It happens. Okay. Now, I'm sorry, I have a new laptop. What you guys have learned in other videos is that here's the stock file, here's the tune file. Blue means it's lower than the other file, red means it's higher than the other file. All right, so this is where you should start to worry, all right? There is an increase of fuel pulse width, okay? Through this area, and up here. But a decrease of, let me look at this right here. Look at this crap. 516, 622, 518, 690. These are lower than stock. This is bad. This is awful. This is the first tune that I've opened up on the screen for this video that has just been complete shit. Like, this is an awful tune. And that sucks because, I want to hope or believe that this was just a pure mistake. I really do, okay? But at the end of the day, it wasn't. This is not a mistake. So, this is not a mistake, okay? Now, I want you to look at this. Pause the video and just look at it. All right. So when doing tuning, you can grab areas and you can smooth them out. Okay. Now, more than likely, that's kind of what happened here. But the problem was instead of selecting it like this, all right, and then smoothing it, what the guy did was he selected it like this. And when he selected it like this, more than likely, he had the 690 here and had these here and just kept hitting the button to smooth it out. What he didn't realize that when he did it, it actually caused it to screw up this whole middle thing. And because he wasn't doing a compare, he did not realize that he was making the numbers lower than stock. Now, when he did that, this is a mistake. This is bad. This is a bad tune. All right. I don't recommend this on any vehicle. And when I started talking to other big tuners about this person and about their tuning, I came to find out that the name was what was selling and not the tuning itself. And this right here will show you that. Again, every one of these tunes will be run on the dyno side by side and show a real world comparison of the difference in the tunes. All right, everybody. So here is the final video, okay? Now, there's going to be a lot of things here that you're going to see that are significantly different than the tunes that I've showed you before, okay? Now, what we have here is we have factory tune, my tune. Now, you're going to see way over here that the pulse width is significantly higher, okay? Significantly higher than the factory tune. Now, with that being said, I want people to realize that this was not just grab random percentages and throw crap at it. That's not what any of this was at all, okay? This was on the dyno, and this put out, we saw it as a 70 horsepower tune, but it was like 73 or 74 horsepower to the wheels over stock, okay? Now, on top of that, so we have made the most power. We have got the highest fuel economy. We have all kinds of results that are based on mainly our pulse width table itself. Our pulse width table has been a giant, basically significant, a significant part of our tuning, okay? And I'm showing you this. I'm showing you this on YouTube, whatever else. And I should probably hide some of this crap here. Don't want anyone stealing that. I um I should say, there's probably small changes that I can do here, okay? Something simple, right? Okay, so I noticed this right away, right? So right here, 147.2, 147.6, right? So in theory, I really should have this be something like 148. All right, because we want it to be smooth transitioning. We don't want this number to be higher than this number. Okay, so there's one small, tiny mistake there. All right, and you'll see right here as well. Okay, so here should be 136.5. Now, don't get me wrong, this area here, almost 100% impossible to hit this area, okay? So please do not take that with, or, take it with a grain of salt, because this area here is almost impossible to hit, okay? So let's just solve that problem, okay? But that's what stuff like this takes is, and I go through and I relook at everything all the time, but that's what you have to do. You have to go through and you got to relook at things and be like, okay, like I, what can I change to make it better? What can I change to make it smoother? What can I do? What can I do? What can I do? All right, these are the things that a company does need to do. They do need to go through randomly and just kind of double check the numbers and make sure the numbers are fixed. So right there, you saw me do it right in front of you. I fixed a few things that I noticed right away that could be slightly better. Okay. Now, like I said, here up, we're never really going to hit this area, okay, unless we spike over the 29,000 psi, which can happen, but we do not target that, right? Okay. And the same thing goes for other areas. Like, how are we going to have virtually no rail PSI, right? But we're going to be flowing freaking 100 millimeters cubed of fuel. It's not going to happen, right? So we might hit this cell randomly. Like you put it to the floor, bang, it shoots up, and you might, if you're lucky, hit this cell, right? Okay. Most tables for all tuning, for all vehicles, okay, typically start somewhere around here. And even as you go wide open throttle, they kind of line this way. And a lot of times they hump a little bit and then they kind of do one of these and that's it. Almost every vehicle, almost every table does that, okay? Because a table has an X and a Y axis of things that are versus each other. In this case, it is fuel quantity, essentially, by fuel pressure. Well, think about it. The higher the pressure, the higher the quantity, right? Okay, so essentially we should move across the map like this. Pretty simple, okay? Now, the reason why that this area, you're probably wondering why this area here is stock looking, okay? The reason why is because this is the area where you're cruising down the freeway. There's no reason to have extra pulse width, okay? Now, what we'll go into in other videos is that even though you don't need extra pulse with a fuel cruising down the highway, you'll actually get better fuel economy if you turn the fuel pressure up slightly because the fuel will be atomized better and will burn better. I shouldn't say burn. Diesel doesn't burn. That's a whole nother video, okay? So it will be more efficient with higher rail pressure when you're cruising down the freeway, which will result in better fuel economy. So keep some of that stuff in mind. I'm going to try to make videos here in the future that kind of put all that stuff together into one. But I'm behind on the videos, okay? Like I really am, and I apologize for that. But here you can see it all now. We did the company that's considered to be the best EcoDiesel tuning company ever, right? We did the company that claims right now to be the best EcoDiesel tuning company. We have a company out of America that's just around. I don't know if they really even claim anything at this point, right? Okay, then we did a company that is one of the biggest Duramax companies in the world, all right? And then we did my company. Okay, now you can argue all day that everything that I've said here is opinion. You can argue that all day. There's no problem with that. You literally can, because with tuning, even if you can prove something, someone's still going to say it's an opinion. So you can do your own math here, okay? Now, one of the things that I do want to address is the stupid claim of washing cylinders out, right? So I have a video where another company claimed that my tuning, because of the extra duration, was going to wash the cylinders out of people's vehicles. Well, that's not true. I showed my engine with over 60,000 miles of running the hottest tune I can on another one of my videos with borescope, and you can still see cross hatching. My tuning will not wash your cylinders. People don't really fully understand what they're claiming, and I really wish that people would, when making lies about other companies, I wish people would actually do a little bit more research and try to make them a little bit more believable than just throwing random claims out there, okay? So, um, just food for thought. Figure it out for yourself. But here is the last part of the video, which is my fuel duration versus the rest of the companies. Okay. Not really much more to say. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.